The content from When Justice Goes AWOL podcast is for informational purposes only. Views expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not reflect those of our sponsors or employers. While efforts are made to ensure accuracy in content, information provided may not always be complete or current. Listeners rely on information at their own risk. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me again today. My name's Nicole Charcoti, and this is When Justice Goes AWOL, and today we're looking at the case of David Tippins, another soldier from JBLM. He's a soldier who serves in the 710th Explosive Ordnance Disposal Company, so he handles the heavy stuff, the big bang stuff. Sorry, I had to momentarily look down and actually read that part because it's such a long title. He's a Bronze Star recipient. He fought as a combat engineer. Sounds like an overall guy who wants to stand up for what's right and defend his country. But what does he do in his spare time? David Tippins was also an active user of the CP website Playpen. Playpen was basically like a forum that a bunch of other predators could go to and trade pictures, videos, produce their own material and trade it with these guys. I was even able to look up his screen name, and his screen... it's kind of gross. His screen name was Candy Girl 123. Candy Girl 123. Anyway, it's not important, just something I thought would gross you out further because it did me, and I want to share in my misery with you all. Shared misery is misery that we can understand and therefore be supportive of each other in. The FBI eventually takes control of this website, and they're like, all right, we're going to go do a sting, and we're going to go get these guys. They actually apprehended over 900 individuals. This was kind of a worldwide event. So they're going to arrest these active users, and Tippins is in his place, and they basically go to him, and he is the only one who is apprehended as part of this sting operation who is actively watching child grape on a loop in a video in his house. I'm sorry, he's watching it on loop while you're arresting him? Is there any question that he's guilty at this point? So as this case is investigated, it's found out that Tippins went through pretty great lengths to conceal his CP habit. He soundproofed his bedroom, he had children of his own, but he insisted that they were never exposed to that kind of behavior. And his justification for viewing that kind of material and doing what he did was because he denied ever having any hands-on SA contact with children. He never went hands-on, so it doesn't really count. Playpen was active for about 8 months, and it attracted over 200,000 users, so the arrest of over 900 individuals is pretty significant, but the fact that they didn't get all of them is pretty disheartening, knowing that you're rooting for the good guys, and there's only so much they can do because of legal issues and the way law is worded. And that becomes pretty evident in this case, especially when you look at, how Tippins' case was handled. He decides he's going to appeal this because he doesn't deserve to go to prison. So he appeals through the ACLU, and they argue that because the investigative techniques that the government used to track these guys down was basically police malware. Now, the government calls it network investigative techniques. The thing is, the government doesn't really like explaining how they track you down. And as a result, judges throw out a lot of evidence that could be used in cases like this. It turns out that he only ended up getting 6 months total for his participation in the Playpen case. Tippins spent years collecting material that he would swap with these other people to further his CP habit. He showed no remorse. I mean, even the lawyers were impressed with his military service and said, oh, well, you can't go as hard on this guy just because he's a soldier and he deserves it. No. That's a slap in the face to all the people that put their heart and soul into getting these guys, and then, oh, because of a technicality, we can't get everybody that we intended to get. Kind of a excuse, in my opinion, but what do I know? Assistant U.S. Attorney Matthew Hampton tried to emphasize that, hey, this man concealed his behavior, his CP habit, to great lengths, and people who do that often know they're behaving badly. He's not sorry because he genuinely feels remorse over what he has done to further the victimization of all those children that he watched. He did it because he was caught and he thought, well, I can exploit my past service to the U.S. government to make me seem like a good enough guy where I don't deserve this kind of sentencing. I'm not a monster, I'm just misunderstood. Colin Feynman, his defense attorney, saying that, my client's many, many years of military service impressed the jury. And it's like, okay, you have these years of military service behind you, but what about all the children who went through what they went through just so you could get your rocks off? And then the issue of surveillance comes up again. It's like, well, the constitutionality of these warrants is in question because I'm questioning your methods. It's like, you hire higher-ups in the government to investigate these kind of crimes and use those kind of network investigative techniques. But if you don't end up using the evidence anyway, that's just a waste of resources, that's a waste of manpower, that's a waste of hours. Hours that could have been put towards possible, reformation of the laws that are in place that end up creating loopholes that protect predators like this. And it shouldn't matter what your background is. If you did what you did and people caught you doing it when you're being arrested, I think that's pretty much grounds for a full sentence. But it's too bad that the judge didn't think so, because Tippins actually appealed his case and only got 6 months for sharing CP, for cruising the website where they proudly display images of children being assaulted and victimized and hurt. But hey, he was a good soldier. He was a great soldier. We're so impressed with his military service that we're willing to overlook you being a pedophile. He's out by now. This was back in 2017, 2016. He is long out by now. I just think it's kind of ironic the great lengths that the military or prosecutors or even defense is willing to go to make sure that their client gets the minimum sentence or the least restrictive alternative. Tippins was free on bond awaiting his sentencing. They kept him free because, he can't be that dangerous. But then these stories just fade away. The names fade away. People forget. The people that it happened to, they want to forget that it ever happened, that they want to move on, and they're entitled to that. But I think it's important to call out bad behavior where bad behavior is due. I think it's important to call out people that shouldn't have jobs anymore because they failed or were blatantly neglectful in situations where crimes could have been prevented, but they weren't. Horrible crimes have been committed, but they're not taken care of. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're exempt from because of your status or your position or how much power you have. If you hurt children, there should be no exceptions. The fact that we spend so much time trying to justify this kind of behavior when it comes from a soldier in our military, but we don't give resources to the victims, we don't give time or attention to the people who need it most in these cases. And 6 months. Not everybody got to appeal their case. Not everybody had the resources to do so. But he did, because of who he is and what his affiliations were. They came out and said how impressed they were with his military service and how that did affect the kind of sentencing that he received when he appealed his case. While he was free on bond, too, I should keep that in mind. Nobody is immune to accountability when they behave badly. It shouldn't work that way, but it does a lot of times because of people's connections. I think that a lot of prosecutors for military crime like to pride themselves on handling cases the best they can. But this is just one example where it wasn't. David Tippins shouldn't be a free man. Not with everything that they found on his computer and found when they were arresting him. He was the only person actively watching CP on his computer, on a loop, of a child being assaulted. But hey, keep him free. Give him the minimum. Let's hold on to him. But so do the people who let this happen, who let these kind of sentences fall through because they're not willing to disclose their investigative techniques to people or amendment rights being trampled on, even though you couldn't give a shit about the rights of your victim when you were doing what you were doing to them. Children. Why are we going so lenient on these guys? What do we owe them? We don't even take care of the veterans that we have. I've talked to enough guys and women sleeping in doorways with mental illness and other issues, housing issues that they've never gotten services for through the VA. But you're willing to hold on to this guy? You're willing to give him the minimum, but you're not willing to help out the soldiers that you already have to that extent? That is messed up. The fact that people can't get services through the VA right now is sickening. It's my opinion that the military uses up people, breaks their bodies in such a way where they can't do anything else. Their bodies, their minds, their spirits. And then it's, okay, c'est la vie, go have fun, out in the world with you. Oh yeah, come back in 6 months, maybe we'll have something then. Try back in there's nobody available for counseling or drug and alcohol services or anger management. You'll just have to come back. I can think of another case where that happened, and the outcome is probably the worst that I've heard of so far. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I talked about the brief information that I could find out about David Tippins and the FBI's response to child essay crimes and child essay crime websites that, frankly, people still aren't being held accountable for to the max that I believe they should be. Next week, we'll be talking about institutional failures. We'll be talking about Washington State Patrol. We'll be talking about Amber Alerts. And we'll be talking about how the VA could have done more to assist a family in avoiding the worst tragedy of a young woman's life. I'm Nicole Charcoti, and this is When Justice Goes AWOL. Keep your head on a swivel out there, and don't forget, there are people who love and care about you, and it matters whether or not you come home to them. Just stay aware, be informed, and take care of yourself.